Welcome back to Spider-Man Sundays. Yes, that's right. I'm calling them Spider-Man Sundays now. Because my Spider-Man Homecoming review did fairly well on the channel, I figured I'm going to do a review series. I'm reviewing every single Spider-Man movie on the channel. We're going to finish up the MCU trilogy, probably move on to the Raimi trilogy, then the Amazing Spider-Man 2 films, and then the Across Spider-Verse. And it's going to be one of each review coming out on Sundays until I complete it. And if they do well, suppose I'll review the Sony Venomverse stuff because I hate my life. But today we got Spider-Man Far From Home, the sequel to Spider-Man Homecoming, released in 2019. And today I'm going to give you my review. Before I get started, it would mean a lot to me if you hit the subscribe button. And while you're down there, hit the bell so you never miss another Spider-Man Sunday. And the like would do me a big favor. But the most important thing while you're down there is to comment down below. What are your opinions on Spider-Man Far From Home? We'd love to know all that and more. If you haven't seen the movie, go watch the movie because I'm not going to shy away from spoilers here. And with that said, I think this is the most frustrating Spider-Man movie for me. Because at a certain point, once it hits a certain point in the movie until the end of the movie, it is just peak Spider-Man. Some of the best Spider-Man stuff we've ever gotten, ever. But then there's a section where it's not, and it's not very good. It's kind of mid. Doesn't really work. Very frustrating. We'll start with that because it is the first half of the movie that is a little bit frustrating for me. Now, I do enjoy going off with these characters, seeing the high school life Peter Parker. Some of the best stuff I thought in Homecoming, and it's kind of elaborated on here. His high school life, going on this trip, wanting to be a normal high schooler, trying to work with Nick Fury and Mysterio while he's on this high school trip. It's got a lot of fun to it, and it's got a lot of novelty to it. I like the comedy in the movie. I think still it's pretty funny. I do like the relationship between Tom Holland and Zendaya, and I don't know since when people decided to hate on this relationship so much, because I never disliked it. I like this relationship. But the first half of the movie is, I don't want to say bad, but it's uninvesting. It makes so many dumb decisions, where the first half of the movie decides to be this movie where Spider-Man's teaming up with Mysterio to fight elemental beings. Okay, it could be more interesting than that. The action sequences aren't really all that fun. It gets ridiculous when Tony gets Edith and he's sending a nuclear strike on Brad, who's just not really that compelling of a character, so he can't really be that character that we like or we hate. So I don't really care. There's just some really, really bad decisions in this first half of the movie to get us to the second half. And that's where the writing comes in play, where I'm not too bothered by the fact that Tony gave Edith to Peter Parker. Yes, I understand he's a kid. I think it's still ridiculous, but I'm not overly all pissed off because of that decision. What I don't like is that Peter Parker then uses that decision and gives the glasses to Mysterio, who turns out to be a bad guy. So you're telling me Mysterio's big plan was to convince Peter Parker to give him the glasses? Hear me out. What if Peter said no? What if Peter didn't give him the glasses? Then what would have happened? It lies on so much conventional storytelling that it doesn't make sense on what actually happens to get to that point. And it's frustrating because just so many bad decisions like that throughout the first half of the movie just really, really frustrated me. And then we get to the second half. The scene, as soon as Peter hands Mysterio the glasses, the movie turns from like a 5, 6, 6.5 out of 10 to a 10 out of 10, the best Spider-Man stuff ever. Number one, the second half has some of the best action sequences that rival Spider-Man Homecomings. In fact, at the sequence where Peter finally realizes that he messed up and that he goes to get Mysterio, and Mysterio starts using the drones for the illusion, that's the best scene in this trilogy. It is just such a cool action scene. The way they utilize the Mysterio's powers without making it magic, I think is truly awesome. Just a great sequence there. But then, not only do we get the ending, where a lot of people say, oh, it's a bunch of CGI stuff. I still think it's awesome because it has all the payoff still. But not only that, but you have the emotional moments. I'm getting way too ahead of myself. Like I said, the Vision scene is just incredible. That fight where he's using all these machines to make all this stuff pop up is awesome. But then from there, you get Peter Parker at his lowest in this movie, where he loses and he doesn't have Tony Stark to rely on. In Spider-Man Homecoming, he had Tony Stark to just, have that emotional arc here. And we don't have that. And I know a lot of people say, oh, Spider-Man Homecoming was just a Tony Stark movie. I'm not doing that rant again. You can go find that rant in my Spider-Man Homecoming review. I love this arc, maybe even more than that, because Peter has accepted that he's Spider-Man. He's just trying to, have a break. But now he has to rely on Happy to be like, this is what Tony would have wanted me to be. And a lot of people say, oh, it's just kind of rehashing the arc. No, I disagree. Because that scene where Happy picks him up and just that emotional scene on the plane is awesome and rivals the emotions in Spider-Man Homecoming. Though that is some great, great stuff happening on that plane. And then you get to the final battle, which, like a lot of people say, is just a lot of CGI, but it has the payoff. Where Spider-Man uses his spider sense. They're in the hallway. He's using the drones. And Spider-Man just closes his eyes and he locks in. Chills every single time I watch it. Jake Gyllenhaal, I haven't touched on this, as Mysterio, I think is a great villain. Like I said, I think his plan is incredibly stupid, but himself as a villain, his performance is awesome. That one scene where he's just like, fire all the drones now, is an awesome, awesome line delivery, and I think the best line delivery in this movie. And by the end of the movie, he is a real threat, because this movie pushes to get out the final film in this trilogy that can fully complete the arc. So not only does it continue the arc where in the first movie he had Tony Stark to propel him forward, in this movie he doesn't, but he realizes that he's by himself, doesn't need help from Tony Stark or the Avengers, and that he has to rely on himself, and pushes forward towards the third movie. So the second half of this movie is just 10 out of 10. And unfortunately, the first half of the movie is heavily flawed, that I cannot call this one of the best Spider-Man movies, because the second half is some of the best Spider-Man stuff I've ever seen. It gets a little tiny bit frustrating at the end of the day, how much this movie could have been a 10 out of 10, and it just ends up being 8 out of 10. Touch on the post-credit scenes. They are awesome. The one where Peter's swinging Zendaya, and we'll touch on Zendaya's romance here in a second. Peter's swinging Zendaya, and the final straw, after Mysterio got murdered, essentially killed himself, is revealing to the world that Spider-Man is Peter Parker, and convincing the world that he was a hero and Peter's the bad guy. Man, I tell you, when I first saw this movie, I was floored, I was excited, I could not wait to see what happened next, and the payoff in No Way Home, which is the next Spider-Man Sunday we'll do, completely paid off for me. It is completely awesome. And then the credit scene where Nick Fury, we learn that him in this movie was a Skrull, and that he's actually in space helping the Skrulls. The payoff to that in Secret Invasion, I think it was okay. I liked Secret Invasion. Not a lot of people did, but I like that. And the final point we're going to touch on here in this video is the relationship between Peter Parker and Zendaya. I know a lot of people don't like it. A lot of people say there's no chemistry. What I love is it feels like a high school romance. A lot of people so far removed from the high school romance. Do you know how awkward it is? I've never had a girlfriend, but girls I've taken out on dates. Do you know how awkward it is? Sitting there, just kind of having this awkward conversation. It's awkward to sit there and watch these two, but it's awkward in the best ways. And I think, again, in No Way Home, it's kind of elaborated better. And so I do like this romance between the two characters and don't get why people don't. So, Spider-Man Far From Home, like I touched on, second half, 10 out of 10. First half, highly disappointing. Before I give you my final score, it would do me a favor if you would go down below, hit the subscribe button, the like button, and the bell so you never miss another Spider-Man Sunday. And comment down below, are you a Spider-Man Far From Home defender, or are you not the biggest fan of this movie? I would love to know all that and more. And with that said, Spider-Man Far From Home has some of the best Spider-Man stuff, but it also has some frustrating stuff within the script. I'm giving Spider-Man Far From Home a B. That's an unfortunate score, and it's worth your time to watch. Alright, thank you guys for clicking on this video. Next Spider-Man Sunday is Spider-Man No Way Home. Can't wait for that one. With that said, subscribe.